Have you ever wondered who invented the pen you use every day? How did humans go from writing with feathers and reeds to the modern ballpoint pen? And was there really one person who invented it? Today, we're going back thousands of years to uncover the incredible story of how the pen was invented, and the inventors who changed the way we write forever. Every day, millions of people pick up a pen without thinking about it. We use one to sign our names, take notes, write exams, draw ideas, and record important moments. But have you ever stopped to wonder how this tiny object came into existence? Who invented the pen? When was it invented? And how did humans go from dipping a feather into a pot of ink to carrying a tiny ballpoint pen in their pocket? The surprising answer is that there was never just one inventor of the pen. The pen is the result of thousands of years of experimentation, mistakes, discoveries, and improvements. Long before modern pens existed, humans already had an incredible need to record information. Ancient civilizations carved symbols into stone, pressed marks into clay, and used simple tools to create written records. These early writing instruments were very different from the pens we know today. There was no ink cartridge, no metal ball, no fountain pen nib. Instead, people used whatever materials nature provided. A sharpened stick, a reed, a bone, or another simple tool could become an instrument for writing. One of the most important early developments was the reed pen. In the ancient world, scribes used hollow plant stems, especially reeds, to carry ink to a writing surface. The basic idea was surprisingly similar to what a pen does today. A writing tip touched the surface, while liquid ink was transferred from the instrument onto the material. It was simple, but revolutionary. For the first time, writing could become faster, more portable, and more expressive. Centuries later, another writing instrument became famous, the quill pen. A feather, usually from a bird such as a goose or swan, could be carefully prepared, cut, and shaped into a writing instrument. For hundreds of years, the quill was one of the most important tools of writing in Europe. Scribes used quills to copy books. Scholars used them to write ideas. Kings and officials used them for important documents. But the quill had an annoying limitation. It did not contain a large supply of ink. The writer repeatedly had to dip the tip into an ink pot. Imagine writing an entire page and having to stop every few seconds to refill your pen. Even worse, the ink could drip, the feather could wear down, and the writing could become inconsistent. People wanted something better. They wanted a writing instrument that could carry its own ink. That simple desire would eventually lead to the fountain pen. Inventors experimented with reservoir pens for centuries. The idea was simple. Instead of carrying an open ink pot, put the ink inside the writing instrument itself. But the engineering problem was much harder than it sounds. If ink flowed too slowly, the pen would stop writing. If it flowed too quickly, the paper would become covered in ink. The pen needed a controlled balance between ink and air. In 1827, Romanian inventor Petrache Poenaru received a French patent for a fountain pen design. His invention represented an important step toward the fountain pen. Instead of constantly returning to an ink pot, the writing instrument could carry ink inside its own body. But early fountain pens were far from perfect. Ink flow remained difficult to control, and reliability was still a major challenge. The 19th century became an age of experimentation. Inventors created new reservoirs, feeds, nibs, filling systems, and materials. Every improvement solved one problem, but often created another. A pen might write smoothly but leak. Another might not leak but stop writing. Some were difficult to refill. Others were expensive to manufacture. The dream was not simply to create a pen that worked once. The goal was to create one that ordinary people could trust every day. Then came one of the most important chapters in pen history. In New York, Louis Edson Waterman worked on improving fountain pen technology. Waterman developed a feed system designed to control the flow of ink and air more reliably. He received his first pen-related patent in 1884. This did not mean Waterman invented every earlier fountain pen. Instead, his work helped make the fountain pen more practical and commercially successful. What made the improvement so important? A fountain pen is more than a tube filled with ink. The ink must travel toward the nib while air enters the reservoir to replace the space left by the departing ink. If that balance is wrong, the pen can flood the page or stop writing. Waterman's design used channels in the feed to help regulate this process. It was a small mechanical improvement, but small improvements can completely change technology. The fountain pen soon became more than an invention. It became a product. Companies began manufacturing pens on a larger scale. Different designs competed for customers. Better materials, improved filling systems, stronger nibs, and attractive designs helped the fountain pen become an important everyday writing tool. Louis Waterman was not alone. Other inventors and companies continued improving fountain pens. George Safford Parker established the Parker Pen Company in Wisconsin in 1888 and received his first fountain pen patent the following year. Competition between pen companies pushed technology forward. The fountain pen was becoming more reliable, more attractive, and increasingly accessible. By the early 20th century, the fountain pen had become an important symbol of education, business, and professional life. People use fountain pens to write letters, sign contracts, keep journals, and record important events. A good fountain pen could even become a personal possession, something people carried for years. But another problem was waiting to be solved. Could a pen be made even simpler? Now the story moves to Budapest in the 1930s. A Hungarian journalist named László Bíró noticed something interesting about newspaper printing. The ink used in printing dried much faster than the liquid ink used in fountain pens. Bíró wondered, could that thick, quick-drying ink be used in a pen? There was only one problem. The ink was too thick to flow properly through an ordinary fountain pen nib. Bíró needed a completely different writing tip. The solution was inspired by a simple observation: a rolling ball can pick up liquid and transfer it to another surface. What if a tiny metal ball could rotate inside the tip of a pen? The ball could pick up thick ink from inside the pen and transfer it onto paper. That idea became the foundation of the modern ballpoint pen. László did not solve the problem alone. His brother Georgi, a chemist, helped develop the ink and the mechanical design. They experimented again and again. The ink had to be thick enough not to leak, but fluid enough to move around the tiny ball. The ball had to rotate smoothly. The socket had to hold the ball securely while allowing it to turn. This was precision engineering on a very small scale. In 1938, Bíró patented his ballpoint design. This was a major milestone. The new pen could use fast-drying ink and write without the traditional fountain pen nib. The basic principle was beautifully simple. A tiny ball rotated inside a socket. One side of the ball contacted the ink. The other side contacted the paper. As the ball rolled, it transferred ink onto the surface. But history was changing around Bíró. Europe was moving toward the Second World War. The Bíró brothers eventually fled Europe and settled in Argentina. There, the ballpoint pen found a new chapter. In 1943, another patent was filed for the design, and the brothers began developing the pen commercially. The ballpoint pen had another unexpected advantage. Fountain pens could be troublesome at high altitude because of pressure and ink behavior. The ballpoint design was much better suited to the conditions faced by aircraft crews. During World War II, ballpoint pens became associated with military and aviation use. A small writing instrument had suddenly become useful in an enormous global conflict. After the war, the ballpoint pen began spreading rapidly into everyday life. American consumers wanted writing instruments that were convenient, inexpensive, and easy to carry. The ballpoint offered something the fountain pen could not easily match. No inkpot. No repeated dipping. No delicate nib that needed constant attention. Just click, write, and keep moving. And here is the fascinating part. The basic mechanism inside a modern ballpoint pen is still remarkably similar to Bíró's core concept. Inside the tip is a tiny ball. As you write, friction makes the ball rotate. The ball picks up ink from the reservoir and transfers it onto paper. That tiny rotating sphere is one of the simplest and most successful mechanical ideas in everyday technology. Think about how many lives a pen touches. Students use pens to learn. Doctors use them to record information. Engineers use them to sketch ideas. Business owners sign agreements with them. Writers turn thoughts into stories with them. And sometimes, a simple handwritten note can become a historical document. The history of the pen is therefore not really the story of one invention. It is a story of evolution. The reed pen solved one problem. The quill improved writing for centuries. Reservoir pens attempted to eliminate constant dipping. Fountain pens improved ink control. The ballpoint made writing faster and more convenient. And modern pens continue to evolve. Modern manufacturing has taken the humble pen even further. Factories can produce enormous numbers of pens with extremely precise components. The tiny ball inside the tip must be manufactured to incredibly tight tolerances. The ink must have the right viscosity. The plastic or metal body must be strong enough for everyday use. What looks like a cheap and simple object can actually contain a surprising amount of engineering. And perhaps that is what makes the pen so remarkable. It is small enough to disappear inside a pocket, yet powerful enough to preserve human thoughts. A pen can record a promise. It can create a drawing. It can write a letter to someone thousands of miles away. And it can turn an idea inside someone's mind into something the rest of the world can see. So, who invented the pen? The honest answer is, nobody invented the entire pen by themselves. Different inventors solved different problems at different times. Petrache Poenaru helped advance the fountain pen in 1827. Waterman patented an important fountain pen feed in 1884. László Bíró and his brother Georgi helped create the modern ballpoint revolution in the 1930s and 1940s. From a simple reed in the ancient world to the tiny ballpoint pen sitting on your desk today, the history of writing is a history of human curiosity. Every generation made the pen a little better. And every improvement made it easier for people to share ideas, preserve memories, and communicate across time. So the next time you pick up a pen, take a second to look at it. Inside that tiny object is more than ink and plastic. It represents thousands of years of human invention. And perhaps the most amazing thing about the pen is this. The invention may be small, but the ideas it can create are limitless.